What's up, everybody? This is Sarah Ripple with Ripple Effect Fitness. I want to break down the burpee and why I use it here in my gym. Lately, I feel like it's one of those exercises that, yet again, people are hating on, saying it's a terrible thing to do with clients. I've said the same things in my past, okay? Like, it's been said before, but there really are no bad exercises. It's the application that can be bad, okay? So when we're prescribing exercises for people, what we want to think about, of course, is their level, their abilities, fitness level, their abilities as far as like, mobility restrictions, previous injuries, things we're working around, okay? Is the exercise going to impede their progress or move them forward? Is it really worth a risk if it's a more technical type movement versus doing something as simple as a loaded carry for metabolic work? We've got all these different things that we need to consider, okay? So where I feel people make the mistake is that they just blindly throw out exercises to people and then just assume it's gonna work. So what I do here in the gym is I always offer options as far as modifications go, okay? So we could say regressions, we could say progressions, we could say lateralizations, whatever you wanna say. The bottom line is that I feel like with regard to the burpee that people can be quick to assume that people are doing it a specific way, or people can be quick to assume that when we hear burpee, then that means the done for time, fatigued state, not to hate on CrossFit, but CrossFit style, flopping on the floor, in a sweaty pile of whatever, in a wad, okay? So having done CrossFit workouts for the greater part of a year, I started doing that last summer. I've kind of shifted kind of how I train myself right now, but I decided to jump into doing programming that was designed for CrossFit Masters athletes by one of the top coaches, just so I could get an idea of what's going on with CrossFit, because for years I hated on it and it was blind. I had no previous experience, nothing to draw from other than just like, for whatever reason, feeling like maybe threatened by people becoming CrossFit coaches who have no previous experience working with clients, okay? So that's where I came from as far as the hate goes. So anyway, long story short, what I discovered like pretty much right off the bat, and I dabbled in CrossFit workouts here and there because my buddy owns a gym, a CrossFit box, and he had invited me a few times to come train with him. So I had a little bit of understanding that it kind of started shifting me over to the other side of the fence, as I say. But it wasn't until I jumped into doing programming that is CrossFit focused programming that I really truly understood what's going on, okay? So what I noticed with regards to the programming, and I'll get back to the burpee here in a second, was that almost immediately it looked a lot like what we kind of all do, okay? So there was a warm-up. Actually, too, there was pre-warm-up, mobility work, and all that good stuff, okay? So you got that chunk. Then there was a warm-up. Then there traditionally would be, depending on the day, the programming that I followed was Comp Train Masters. It was 5 days a week. It was high volume. They had different cycles. Depending on if it was a strength day or more of a skill day, every day had a conditioning piece at the end, or 2 conditioning pieces. But if it was a skill day, there would typically be kind of a 10 to 15 minute skill piece that was done prior to the conditioning. And then if it was a strength day, we would have pretty much just normal strength work, like cluster sets were in there, paused work was in there, just a logical progression from week to week with whatever lift was being emphasized for that training block. So in my nerdy ways, I completely took all the programming that I was following and copied it and mapped it out so I could see the progressions with the strength work, because I wanted to see if there was any method to the madness, and there was. So to anyone out there that wants to blindly like hate on a specific training methodology or way of doing things without having any understanding of it from doing it themselves and actually like sitting down and looking at it, you're just basically wasting your breath, okay? I feel like it's real easy in this day and age for people to just throw out opinions on the internet and like sound like they know what they're talking about when they really fucking don't, okay? So y'all just please stop with that, okay? So back to the burpee. Here's what I learned about the burpee from doing CrossFit conditioning pieces or WODs or whatever you want to call them. For me as a former gymnast, and I'm 5'2", burpees are fun, okay? So like I understand when I have clients who are tall, like there's certain things I take into consideration. And again, that goes back to modifying exercises for people. So with regards to what I was doing, what I learned about using burpees in workouts was that essentially I have good body control. Okay, so if we're talking about me. We're not talking about somebody that's just Joe Blow walking off the street. This is me, former athlete. I consider myself an athlete for life. Knowing my abilities, I was able to take the burpee and learn how to kind of use gravity to assist me on the way down to the floor, okay? And then come up from the floor in a good position. I didn't do any kind of crazy floppy crap that people stereotype. What I essentially learned was that you can incorporate your breathing and pace yourself really well on any and all exercises when done in like a traditional CrossFit type workout, okay? The breathing and the pacing was a huge thing that I learned. It's not like you just go in and do 100 reps per time of whatever. Like there's actual strategy that you can employ, okay? So again, with regard to the burpee, what I learned was that I could breathe out at the top of each rep, okay? And then breathe in as I was essentially gracefully flopping to the floor, okay? So I'll try to demonstrate a few for y'all. I haven't done these in a while. Guess I should raise my arms. Okay, so if you see, like there is gonna be a little bit of like, I don't know, like you're not gonna keep your spine in a super rigid position this whole time you do that because you're working with gravity and you're having to absorb the floor as you come down to it. So again, a burpee as it's used in a CrossFit setting for people who are capable of doing that specific way of doing it, I feel is fine, okay? If you've cleared like no wrist issues, I have had a history of low back issues. There wasn't anything that I ever did in CrossFit programming in the workouts as they were prescribed to me that aggravated anything, okay? In fact, I will say, I feel like the focus on body weight and gymnastics type movements and the variability of movements was actually beneficial to me. So yet another plus for following that type of programming if you're able to, okay? So what we do here in Ripple Effect is what I call a benign burpee. I used to call it a step back burpee, which that's an option on the benign burpee. So essentially a benign burpee is what I assume is called a squat thrust. So you just jump out to a high plank, jump back in. I cue people to have their feet a little bit wider than the hands and then stand up. You can add the jump at the top or not. So a benign burpee as a step back would be going here and standing up. Again, you could add the jump at the top or not. So my initial point of this whole, what's turned out to be a lengthy video, was to just kind of show y'all what we do here in my gym as far as burpee variations, okay? I like the burpee, as I said, for myself, for doing in conditioning work, but I also like it for a lot of my clients just because I feel like if you're doing it with good alignment and good mechanics, it can be a good kind of warm-up for the hips. It gets the core firing. We got some good pushing away of the floor and reaching the arms long, okay? So we get some good stable protraction position of the scapula, okay? So that's good. Also, I will say that if taking someone all the way down to the floor is too much, then place a 4 to 12 inch step in front of them and let them place their hands on that, okay? So you're essentially elevating their upper body and making the movement easier to do, okay? So with any exercise that's out there, I feel like it's easy for us to kind of just jump on a bandwagon and go, oh, that's a shitty exercise, we shouldn't do those. Again, I feel it's the application is where people get it wrong. Yes, there are some exercises that are probably not the best idea for most people. One I can think of is behind the neck pull downs, which we used to do them that way back in the 90s when I started working out. And hey, I mean, if somebody's cleared to go mobility-wise, that might not be a bad thing for them to do. But as with anything that we're having people do in the gym, I honestly believe that long-term, we really don't know what the repercussions of any exercise is. So if you look at it that way, like, we're using our best judgment to prescribe exercises for our clients. And in doing so, I hope the judgment is on point, okay? So I guess that's my outgoing message, is make sure your judgment is on point when you're prescribing exercises for your clients. Be smart, okay? If there's something that's got a lower learning curve for them to do that's going to give them the same training effect, obviously choose that. But if we're wanting to acquire new skills and someone wants to try something or wants to get better at something or just needs a little variability, if there's something else you can plug in that you can safely modify for that person, then go full speed with it, okay? But just use your brain. We'll catch y'all later.